Good morning, everyone. I hope everyone is doing okay and can hear me fine. I'm really excited to be back here after vacation, much needed one, I would say. And I miss you all, and I hope everyone would be having good time and ready for another session. I have Purna with me today, and she would also be helping with the chat questions and would be helping with the guest session we would be having. So, from today onwards, we are embarking on our behavioral track. But I have included a little bit of technical too because we had some questions for specific services which people struggle with. So, I thought let me talk about basics of the technology first, and then we will have a guest who would help us in understanding how their journey was, what they have achieved, and how they achieved it, and some tips and tricks to help you out. We have a nice guest lineup coming up. In next week, you will be revealing the name of all of those people, and probably we would have a workshop from recruitment team of AWS helping you understand how the recruitment process works. We are also looking to get some hiring manager on the call so they could help you in understanding how the hiring process looks like, what they look into candidate. I know that currently that we do not have recruitment opened, but when it opens, this skills would help you, and we will focus on more interesting stuff. So, as always, enjoy the session. Any feedback, we are all open for it. Any suggestions you have to make your learning better, just let us know, and we would be happy to help you with that case. Parna, if you are there, I would just like you to say hi, and then we can connect. We can move forward. So here is Parna. Thank you for your time, Parna. And if you know,
Hey, hi
Parna has
everyone.
now joined us as a PESA volunteer and she is helping us with a lot of session. I enjoyed your last session on networking, Parna. It was good. I really enjoyed it. I couldn't catch up everything that day, but I later watched broadcast and it was nice. So thanks for that.
Thank you so much. I'm sure everybody missed you, so they were surprised to see me rather than you there.
Yeah, we need change, isn't it? We need changes
Yeah,
sometime. Yeah, means
right.
I was daring for that vacation from long time, and due to some commitment I could not go. But yeah, that was a nice time. Thank you. So we will quickly get started, everyone, and feel free to ask questions. We can see people are less in numbers. That is completely fine. Commitment is not something everyone can do. Everyone has their priorities and then other things. But yeah, anything we can do to make your learning better, just let us know, and we would be happy to accommodate those things so that you get the best out of the session. We respect the time you're investing, and we want to give you the best out of the time you have. So, any suggestions like this technical session, which I'm taking right now shortly, is based on the suggestion we receive for Amazon ECS. Similarly, if you have any other services which confuses you, and if I know about them or anyone in our team knows about it, we would be happy to discuss those things. All right. Thank you. Thanks, Rajshekharan. Vacation to India? No, I went to Dubai, Ranga, this time for a week. So I plan to go to India next month for a long vacation, but I wanted a short trip to just to unplug, and that's why I went to Dubai for a vacation. I've been working there for 4 years, so I have a lot of friends which I wanted to talk to, and it's been long, so that's why I went there. But yeah, I'm looking forward to my vacation to India. Thank you. Let me share screen and we will quickly get started. Let me know once you see the screen. I hope everyone is seeing the screen. So I'll go off camera and let you focus more on the content so that you get the best of the particular session. I'll switch off this banner also. Yes, we have started the session. So we are on week 9, 8th April, and we will discuss about container stuff. Right. This is purely based on the request we have received for somebody wanted to learn about containers. So we are happy to accommodate that. Now, I have covered containers before in a different session, so I won't go into much detail, but I would now talk about the implementation details of the container. Let's go ahead and talk about it. So how containers run. So container basically share an operating system. Let me give you an idea how it actually happened. So in early days, we had a traditional approach where you had a physical server, and on that physical server, we had operating system. That operating system would allow me to run application, and that's how we were running our resources. So that was the easy way to get started, not a complicated one. And then came hypervisors. In hypervisor, we started having an operating system, and that operating system is hypervisor operating system, means it's a specific purpose built operating system allowing me to run virtual machines on top of it. And when these virtual machines are running, I am able to host multiple virtual machines on the system, and I am leveraging my hardware in a much better approach. Container work on similar approach but little differently. Let me explain. In container, we still take the traditional operating system like old days, and instead of physical server, this could be virtual server also, but we need some power of compute to get these services running. And on this operating system, we install some container platform. And that container platform could be anything. The most common one we see is Docker, but it is not the only one. There could be LXD, there could be Rocket. So there can be multiple types of container platform depending on your comfort, depending on your use cases. You would select any of these container platform, and afterward, once this container platform is ready, you would then add containers to it, and that's how your application would be running. So container are a micro virtual machine in a way. They do not have their own operating system, but what they do, they share the operating system. So virtual machine, I call them that it is a hardware virtualization, but in case of containers, we call it that we are doing a operating system virtualization. My operating system is virtualized, and multiple container feel they have full control of operating system, but technically they are just sharing those operating system. So that is what the container approach looks like, right? Any questions so far on containers? Anyone, any doubts? I have a session into previous batch, so please check that to get more detail. I just quickly covered it, and now my focus would be more on container services on AWS because there are a lot of them. So I want to ensure that you get an idea on when to use which one and what purpose each service solves of containers in AWS. Okay, keep your questions coming, and we will try to pick up those questions, and we will try to answer as much as we can. So let's try about talk about containers on AWS. Now, we need two type of services to run it. September 2022, it was covered. Yeah, thanks, Pawan. So we have two things we require. One is image storage. Image is a container requires an image to get started, so we need to store images. And second we need is compute. Compute is basically where we would be actually executing these images or running these images. So image storage which we have is called ECR, Elastic Container Registry. And through this Elastic Container Registry, we could keep our images. This is used for storing, encrypting, and managing container images. Not a mandatory service, but highly recommended if you want to have a private control on your container images. Put them into ECR, and this ECR service would allow you to create something called repository. Like you have Git repositories where you keep your code. In a ECR repository, you would keep your container images. Obviously, if it is an image, it can have multiple versions also. So you could have versioning done on your container, should not be a problem. But this is an image, this is a definition which needs to be executed somewhere, and that somewhere is basically compute services. So compute can be provided to containers by a traditional approach which we use EC2 hosted. Means I would have EC2 machine who would allow me to have a compute capacity provided, or if I feel I'm not interested to maintain these EC2, I could go in a serverless approach. And in serverless, I would just say, hey, this is my container, I need that many copies of it, I need this much memory, and then the service would take care of deploying that container for you. That would be serverless fashion. And in serverless, the service we offer is called AWS Fargate. So Fargate would allow you to run containers without managing the server. I don't have to worry at all about anything, and I just say what my image is, what size I need, and what how many of I need, and it will be taken care by the service. Like when you execute a Lambda function, you just say this is my code, this much memory I need, and service takes care of providing the resources. Similarly, in Fargate, you specify container image, and you would be just getting those services running without you managing any infrastructure. So that is a serverless way of running your compute. So this is good, but sometimes we need more control. Sometimes we want to install some specific software on those hosts where the container is running, maybe a monitoring software like Prometheus, maybe a networking software like Calico. So we need to have control on it. And that time we could go with the approach of EC2. What I could do, I could create a self provision cluster on EC2. So I could take my EC2 machines, and on those EC2 machines, I could install the Docker software. And once the Docker software is available, I could put them together into a cluster. And when that cluster gets ready, I should have no problem in running more services on top of it. So this is one good way. This gives me more control, but the challenge here is that I have to manage this software. I have to install Docker, dependencies of that, keep it updated, lots and lots of challenges. So this is still a better approach if you want to have server level control for your operating system. Somehow you need to install some third party agent, or you need some component to be configured or tweaked as per your requirement, then you would be using this container based approach. If you do not want to maintain these things on your own of installation and provisioning, you could take help of a service which is called ECS, which is our Elastic Container Service. And that is the topic for today, which I want to discuss. And in ECS, you can run containers using fully managed container orchestration service. ECS is a service offered by Amazon AWS so that you do not have to worry about installation and configuration of initial container images. We will be taking care of that for you. So that is one approach. I could run container using a fully managed container orchestration service. Or if you feel that I have expertise into Kubernetes, or my existing environment was Kubernetes, I may use a Kubernetes based cluster EKS, and that would be hosted on EC2 machine, and through that I could manage container with Kubernetes. So this is another approach I could follow if I have to. So these are the options available for me to run containers. Now ECS EKS are basically a orchestration tool. What I mean by orchestration tool, that they help you in deciding which service to use, or which image to configure, or how to deploy that image. If a container fails, how to restart that, or how to recover from a failure. So they basically orchestrate the common task of placement, restarting, configuration for you. So those are considered as your orchestration service, but behind the scene they are still leveraging EC2 based machines on that case, right? So I hope this thing is clear and you have a better idea on how these all services put together. If there are any questions, any doubts, any confusions, let us know and we would be happy to answer those questions for you. So this is what we can do for running containers on AWS. Now let's see how implementation looks like. So we will be comparing EC2 versus containers. So that would be much easier for you because most of you already know about EC2 machine. So in EC2, when I have to deploy something, how my journey looks like, and I would compare that journey with containers here. So to get started with the EC2 instance, I would need an AMI, right? AMI, anyone knows full form of it? What is the full form of AMI? I'm sure everyone knows about it, but yeah, just to make an interaction here, anyone, what is the AMI? ECS is backend in Kubernetes on any other software. We'll talk about that, Siva. So we will talk about that. AMI is Amazon Machine Image, exactly. So that is Amazon Machine Image. Now Shiva has a question. ECS is backend is Kubernetes. I would say probably no. No. No, see, it is not Kubernetes. Maybe it is something which Amazon has built in on their own, or it may be it may be Docker Swarm. I don't know, but this is not Kubernetes. I can guarantee you that Kubernetes is only for EKS. So when you deploy EKS, that time Kubernetes is there. This one is still using maybe a proprietary version of Docker Swarm if required. Right, so that is possible, but not EKS running here, not Kubernetes running on that case. Another question I have here is container scalable? If yes, how? We will talk about that and we'll see that in a minute, Sundam. So Sunanda, we will be talking about that, how we will scale them. So my AMIs are stored into S3. We do not see that, but actually these AMIs are being stored into Amazon S3 bucket somewhere that is maintained by AWS. And then when I have to use these AMI, I would be putting them into an instance. So when I say I want to launch an instance, I have to define what is the AMI, what is the CPU and memory requirement of it, what role I have to assign, what network it would connect to, how much storage would be there. So we would be using this as a mechanism to launch EC2 instances. So we would need AMI, we will put together into an instance, and then it will be started. Now, challenge here is if it is one instance and if it fails, my service would be stopping. I don't want that. So probably if you are looking for high availability and performance, you would put that together into auto scaling group. So in auto scaling group, you define what is the group of instances, how many you need, what is the minimum maximum, what is the health check, what is the deployment cycle of it. So all this information is put together into an auto scaling group. An auto scaling group is a definition. It will still need a execution environment to get started. And that execution environment in AWS is provided by Nitro system, which is our purpose built hardware software combination. And once you have this Nitro system, then you could have your auto scaling group running on top of it. It could be ASG1, ASG2, and we can maintain minimum, maximum, and desired capacity inside it. But I don't want my users to independently talk to these machines. So most probably what you would have a load balancer where user interact, and that load balancer forwards traffic to the auto scaling group in which any of the auto scaling instances can respond to you. So this is properly how your EC2 instances would be running. Keep this concept at back of your mind, and let's relate this concept with our ECS as a service. Right. So in ECS, what we would have a container image. This container image is equivalent to a AMI, which is a definition of what I want to launch. As AMI was stored in Amazon S3, a container image can be stored in Amazon ECR, Elastic Container Registry. This is a definition, and this definition has to be provided with the details, and that detail we would provide through something called task. So this is a keyword for ECS. ECS uses a mechanism called task, and which is a combination of one or more container, and in that we define how much is the image size, memory, role, network, or storage. Similar like an instance, it is a task we are creating. If you want, you could just launch one task and get started, but most probably one task, if it fails, your request will not be succeeding. So what you will do, you will combine them together into something called a service. Another technical term we use here is called service, and service is combination of multiple tasks. It is like an auto scaling group of the task in which similarly we define deployment type, health check configuration, minimum, maximum, and this is what we call as a service. Now the service has to execute, right? It has to run, and it would require an execution environment, and that execution environment will be provided by ECS cluster. If I want to have a specific hardware specific type of operating system, ECS, that is, if I don't want to manage all these things, I need orchestration, I would go for ECS, and then I may have services running on top of it. This is a standard approach where I have a cluster in visibility and I run my services on that. I control the size of the cluster, but what would happen here, that Fargate is ensuring that Fargate will allow you to run service without managing the server. So both are execution environment. Services can be configured to run on ECS, or it can be configured to run on Fargate. It is purely up to you. And once you have these services ready, again, they may be individual system. So maybe we will put a front end on that. That would be a load balancer. And now my users would be connecting to that. That's how it will be working. All right. So I hope this thing is clear and you have a better idea on how all these things work. So as you could see, there is not very different way of doing things, only the terminology changes. There we used to call that instances. This time we call it task. Here we used to call it auto scaling group. Here the wording is service, and we used to run it on Nitro system. Here we run it on a ECS cluster. So that's how things are created. I hope this thing is clear here. Okay. I have a question here from Sunanda. Let me check the question here. AWS Nitro system doesn't make any instance have high availability. No, Nitro is part of the AMI definition. Answer is no. Let me talk about Nitro definition. What is Nitro and why we need it? Now, what AWS is doing, AWS has taken some physical servers. Right, let's talk about how everything works. On these physical servers, what they have some custom built operating system running. You could call it a hypervisor. Initially, it was a Citrix type of, initially it was an open source hypervisor called Zen hypervisor. Now, EC2 came in existence in around 2006-7 or sometime. I don't remember exactly, but point I'm trying to clarify here is that EC2s are running for a long duration, more than 15 years. So till that time, AWS realized that what is the optimal configuration in terms of hardware and software required to run EC2 instances. So instead of taking any traditional server and any traditional operating system, what AWS did, AWS realized that it will be better if we build our own system for running these EC2 machine, which will be fine tuned for EC2. This is a purpose built type of operating system, which will purpose built type of hardware and software combination, which is allowing us to run EC2 optimally. Hardware means it has something called Nitro chip, which is a hardware based virtualization, and software is it is having its own hypervisor, and that combination is called a Nitro system. And whenever you launch a EC2 machine, those EC2 machine are launched on this Nitro. So Nitro is the hardware software combination. It is not by default making your application highly available. You would decide on auto scaling group or other configuration by which you would be creating it. Chip from AWS or Intel, I don't know, Ranga. I'm not sure. Maybe some component maybe from different vendors, but maybe it could be all AWS. So see, that detail is not published because it doesn't add to any value to the customer. So we do not have that information here. Right. So hopefully this thing is clear. So Nitro is not part of our AMI. AMI is a configuration, and you launch AMI on a Nitro system, and that's how it actually works. I hope everyone is clear. And let me quickly go to console so that we can best leverage the time. And afterward, we would be seeing this ECS into action. So my requirement is pretty simple. What I am looking for a specific server to be, so I want to deploy some container which will be just a simple web service containers I need to. So for that, what I would be needing first, I would be needing a cluster where the containers would be started. So I would have two-step approach. First I would create a cluster, and once my cluster is ready, then I would launch containers on that. Question is here. Let me read it. Service in container if equivalent to ASG instance, would it be right to say service responsible for scaling containers? Yes, exactly. We will be talking about that, and I will be showing you that also. So yes, exactly. That is a true understanding of yours. That it is a right understanding. I'll show you that in a minute. Now, I'm just going to ECS service here, Elastic Container Service, and through this service, I should be able to first get started by creating a cluster. So cluster is a combination of EC2 instances on which I would be running my container. So I could go ahead and create a cluster here. So this is my cluster. I do not have anything. I'm using Northern Virginia. Now, for sake of demo, I'm not following best practices of keeping it secure and putting it into internal network and all. I'm just creating a cluster for sake of it. So let's call it, this is my ECS cluster 01. That's what I want to create here. I would need a VPC because basically it is EC2 machine behind the scene. So I could select which EC2 which VPC it will be part of, which subnet it will go into. I have multiple of them selected. Maybe I am not interested in all of them. So I just selected two subnets for it. But you could spread your cluster across multiple subnets, should not be a problem. And here in infrastructure, I could specify whether you are using what for that, whether it is going to be a EC2 instance, or is it going to be external instances using ECS anywhere. I'll explain a little bit on ECS anywhere in a minute, but let me start with EC2 instances. What I'm looking for, I am looking to create a new auto scaling group. In that, I would be having Linux based instances. So this is my Linux 2 operating system, which I have selected. Instance type, I am looking for, let's say C5 two extra large instances. So I could select this C5.2 extra large instances, and here I am specifying minimum two and maybe maximum of six. And if I need to SSH, I could select the key pair. If not, I could just keep on removing it, and then I could go ahead and say create. So when I say create cluster, what is going to happen? A cloud formation template is going to be kicked in for me. And that cloud formation template would set up a auto scaling group with two EC2 instances with required configuration, required networking, and that is how my cluster would get ready. Cluster will give me the basic architecture on which I should be able to launch my EC2 launch my container images. So if you look here, this is the template which is being used for your service, and this template has information about what is happening. Plus you would be able to see things into event section, like what is currently happening, what resource is getting created. So you could select it and you could see this process as it is happening. So I'll keep it running until that time. We will focus more on some additional thing, which is the task definition. But for EC2 launch time, we need Linux. Answer is no, Sunanda. So that is a question which is there. Let me put it on the screen. But for EC2 launch time, see, you need an instance or you need an operating system which has Docker installed on that. So you could have selected a Windows based operating system too, and that may be also a Docker system. So that is not mandatory. The most suitable option is Linux, but if you want, you can run containers on Windows also. So container is in a way platform independent, but you platform independent doesn't mean that. Let me explain that. So when you create a container image, in that image, you specify whether it is a image to be run on a Linux based machine or a Windows based machine. So that container image you could run on any flavor of Linux. But you can't say that I would take this Linux based image and run it on Windows. No, it is not that kind of independence. It will be having independence in the flavor of Linux or supported Linux platform. But you can't say that my image is having Windows based information and I want to run it on Linux. It won't work. So compatibility doesn't mean cross operating system. It depends independence from the platform independence of your uh, Linux flavor, but not Windows or EC2, Windows or Linux. So I hope this thing is clear. All right. All right, keep your questions coming, and that is, yeah, that's good. That's not a problem. So see this now. My cluster is getting ready. We have two instances currently being registered. My cluster has been created. If I go back and see, it has created it. What it has created for me, it has created a ECS cluster, and in that ECS cluster, I have two instances which are part of my auto scaling group. If you see, auto scaling group got created, and now I could see this cluster here and see what is the status of my instances. So here is my infrastructure, and in infrastructure I have two instances which are basically just EC2 instances, nothing complicated, but internally they already have this agent installed. This is a ECS agent. So this ECS agent would allow me to manage these infrastructure through ECS. So this is my cluster ready. And if I want, I could even register external instances. So what is this ECS agent? Let me explain it. So this is a plain EC2 machine, right? On this EC2 machine, there would be a Linux based operating system. On top of it, there would be Docker or any other software for container. And also on top, we install something called an ECS agent. This agent would be allowing us to manage these instances. And what you would have, you would not have one instance, you would have probably multiple instances, and that will all have the same type of things inside. Every of these EC2 instances will have a ECS agent, so you could create a cluster out of it. So what I could do now, I could put all these machines together and call it a cluster. Now we have another service which is called ECS Anywhere. Very simple to understand. What if I have a on-prem infrastructure or I have an on-prem machine in my on data center or on wherever? So this is my on-prem server. What I could do, I could install a ECS agent on this on-prem server also. Let it have connectivity to my AWS services, and they can also be now part of my cluster. That is called ECS anywhere means the agent is running anywhere and we can control it through the control plane of ECS service. So that is also possible. So you decide on what works well for you. You are not limited to have ECS only in on-prem, only in AWS. You could even run ECS agent in on-prem environment and let them get registered here so that we could treat them as part of a cluster. So one place you could say, okay, I want to launch some container on on-prem, or I want to launch some container on EC2. So that's how it would be working. I hope this thing is clear and you have a better idea on what is ECS anywhere. Okay, let's move forward. Let's discuss a little bit more on that. So once this is ready, my cluster can handle the request which is coming up. That's fine, but I do not have anything running on it as of now. So that will start with task. So in task, I would define what I am looking for, right? I have some task here. Let me delete it so that we don't get confused with it. So I would be needing to go inside it and then I would select different versions of it and we would be saying deregister them first. And once deregistered, I would be able to delete it. So that is deregistered. This is my task definition and I do not have anything inside it, right? So I could now create a new task definition if the need be. So this is my task. And in this task, if I need, I could have containers running. Let me go ahead and create a task for you first. Let's create it. Let me remove this one also so that you don't get confused with the UI. And let me deregister. Done. See what I'm doing? I'm deregistering. Done. And now I have nothing here. Let me start with create new task definition. We can have multiple container running on single EC2 instance, right? Yes, exactly. See, we would have a capacity from EC2. So if you look at these EC2 machine which I have, these instances giving me that much of CPU and RAM. So if I have this instance, it would have some amount of CPU and memory associated. So this is C5.extra large. Probably it will have 8 GB of RAM and 4 CPU. So till I fill up that space, I should be able to utilize them and run multiple containers on that EC2 shouldn't be a problem at all, because that's how we will have a dense deployment and we would be able to leverage these instances at full capacity, because my containers can be very small in sizes which may not fill up the whole instance. So obviously I could have multiple containers running on a single EC2 instance, no problem at all on that, right? Okay, now moving forward, what I'm trying to do here, I am trying to create a task. Let me go ahead with the task definition. It is information about the task. So I call it, let's say I want to run a simple web server task. So I have a task. Task is the outer boundary. In a task, I define which container I want to run, right? So I say I want to run a web server here. Okay, what web server is, so I would say I want to utilize here httpd and I want to use this latest image. Now what I am using here, I am using the Docker registry, which means that is a free template available from which I could get this httpd image and I want to use latest image version of it. If you want, you could replace this image URI with your own container image. So you should be able to have your private container images, and that ECR images can be referred here. Right now, I'm just saying that, hey, I just need to have it being downloaded directly from my public repository. I'm not looking for internal communication, not looking for internal repository. So that is completely fine. And now I could see which specific port number we would be referencing to. So what is happening here? This is your instance, right? On this instance, we may have containers running. So instance would have a network interface, right? So let's say this is a network interface of an instance, and in that we have multiple containers running. So when a request comes on port number 80 here on a ENI, I want it to be forwarded to one of my container who would respond to me. And that can be running on a different port number. Let's say it is running on 8080. Similarly, I could say if a request comes for 443 port number, I want to forward it to another container who is running on 443. So that mapping can be created, that network configuration where we receive requests in one interface, but based on the request port number, we forward convert it to different type of containers running inside. So that is completely possible. What I'm doing right now, I'm saying I am okay with AT and TCP port number. I do not need more port mapping. I could add environment variable, like if my container wants to go and talk to a database and I need credential for it, I could have added it. And any health check and any specific Docker configuration or commands I want to run, or I want to set up a working directory, I could have done it, but I want to keep it as simple as possible. So I am creating a simple web server task by referencing an image HTTPD latest version of it. I may have to define a little bit more details on it. So this is my task has been successfully created, as you could see. Now I have this here. I say where I plan to run this task. So my request here, or my suggestion here, is to run on EC2. I want to run it on EC2. I'm not looking for Fargate as of now. I could select the architecture. I could define how much CPU and memory I want to give to this particular task. So I don't need 3 GB RAM. One CPU and 1 GB RAM is okay. But if you want, you could set up even smaller sizes on that. So maybe 0.25 CPU, zero point 0.5 CPU, or maybe smaller amount of RAM. That can also be done, should not be a problem. So we could define that. Now, this is a task size. One task may have multiple containers. Let me explain that. This confuses people. So most of the time in one task, we keep one container, but it is not mandatory to have one container. What if this is my web server and I want to have another container in that who would be doing the log processing? So it is still one task, but I have one container for web and another container for log processing. They both can work together as one single task. So I could define memory and CPU for task level. So I said one CPU and maybe 2 GB of RAM, and then I could say container web, I will give you zero point 0.5 CPU and I will give you 1 GB of RAM, and container 2 I will also give you zero point 0.5 and maybe zero point 0.5 GB of RAM, and remaining will be still available. So that is absolutely possible. You decide on how you want to further divide a task into multiple container and what memory configuration you want to add on that. All right, so I have selected one CPU and 1 GB. I'm not going to container sizes independently, so that's fine. If my task need to talk to someone else, then I may need a role on that. So I could put some roles on that. Any storage I want to connect to these container images, like I may want to connect them to some EFS mount points, I could connect it, and more information like monitoring where the logs would be collected and all, and that will help me in getting my task definition ready. So this is my container one, which will have port 80, which will be having HTTP access, and in that we have this much CPU and memory. And once it is ready, I would be creating my task definition. So what I did, I created a definition. It is like a AMI, and this AMI has to be started on a cluster now. If you want, you could deploy this task independently. So I could go ahead and say, okay, I have this task and I want to deploy it. There are multiple ways of doing it. I could go ahead from here and say deploy this task, or I could go to my cluster and from there I could say, okay, cluster, I want to run a task on you. So it is purely up to you. So currently this cluster has no task. Cluster is made up of capacity provider, which is my two EC2 instances. So that is completely fine. And I am saying now I want to create a task here. So I'm running a new task, and in that task, I would be selecting what my capacity provider and other settings are. I am interested to run a task. I would be selecting the task which I had, which is my simple web server, right? I could select different versions of it. Probably I would have just one heads up now. That is okay. And I could say, what is my desired number of tasks I want to run? I would say one is fine. If I want a group, that is okay. Placement of tasks, where it would be started, on which EC2 instance it would be placed on. So I'm selecting AZ balanced here. It could be one task per host, random, custom. There are different way of placement of the task and some additional setting. And now I say create. So now that image which I had with the configuration setting I defined is being launched as a task on the cluster. So this is my cluster, and on that cluster I have a task which is getting ready for me. It is into pending state. Maybe in a second or two it would come into running state. And what this task entails inside, if I go further into the task, it has a container running inside it. And if I want to access that and see this, what happened, my instance based on the configuration got an IP. So this is the public IP of my instance, right? And through this, I would be mapping to the container running in. So see this, there is a network binding. If my request comes on container port 80 on host, if it is coming on this, I want to forward it to port number 80 here. So if I go to this particular link and open it, hopefully it will be showing me a simple web server, and it is a web server coming up directly. So it works, not a complicated one. So what we did, we created a task, and through that task we launched the server of our choice. Similarly, you could have created complicated solution in that, and that can be launched, should not be a problem. So I hope everyone is clear with the understanding of the task which we have just created. But when it comes to scaling and when it comes to high availability, of one task fails, my application would die. And probably what I would do in that case, I would combine those tasks into something called services. So let's go ahead and talk about services now. Service is nothing but a combination of tasks. So in this case, I would again go to my ECS service and say, okay, cluster, you were running a task for me. What I am interested right now is to run a service on you. So task is running one task, and I am now putting a service. Service is nothing but a auto scaling group of tasks. So I say, okay, I want to create a service. In that, like in auto scaling, you define minimum, maximum, and desired. Similarly, you will define that too. So I am using cluster. I want to launch a service. Which task I want to select here? I would be saying I want to select the same web server task. Again, revision number. I would be calling it my web server service, right? So it looks same, but it is different in a way. And with this service, what I want, do I want replica? So yes, I want replica. I want to get started with, let's say, three tasks, or let's say three tasks. Yes, deployment option and other rolling update and all, I could select service connect. And if this is a service which may run three container, do I need a load balancer? Yes, I could. And I could have selected a new load balancer to be added for it. It will take time, that's why I'm not going through that path, but hope you get the idea. And here is my auto scaling option. Do I want to scale my service? So yes, I could say minimum number of tasks is I want is 2, and sorry, 3. Maximum I want is up to 10. And I would be using some value of CPU or another benefit or other any factors, so that I should be able to utilize these examples as per my requirement. So I'm not going with target tracking and all as of now. I am not interested in getting a load balancer and auto scaling, but you could have configured it to get a better approach to your application. And now I say, okay, I'm happy, create the service for me. So what the service is basically doing, this service would be deploying three tasks for me apart from one task I'm running, and they would be spread across my two node cluster. If I had 100 nodes, it would spread across them, but currently I have two nodes. So in this case, I would have more component which are running on this. And if you see this now, see this, how many tasks I have? I have four. One which I launched manually 4 minutes ago, and others are 1 second, 4 second, and 1 second ago, and they are all running on EC2s, which is consuming one CPU and 1 GB of RAM. And if I want to exactly know which specific infrastructure they are running on, so if you see this. So currently this is my cluster capacity, minimum, maximum size, and these are the container instances on which my tasks are running. So if I go here, I should see two tasks on one instance, other two tasks on another instance. So we are leveraging same instance to run multiple containers on it. And if I have to connect to a service, probably I would have a load balancer whom I would be talking to. But in my case, I have not selected a load balancer, so I'm not referencing it directly, but I could still go to independent task within it. So see, this was my example of 3.239. That was a web server we had run. Let me go ahead here on my service web server, and let's go ahead and check the task associated with it. Let me go back. Let me pick up any other task here which is running. Let me pick this one and let's see what is inside it. So here is still network binding information, and now I could see this one has a different IP address here. No, this is the same thing, but you could see what happens now. See this. So my instance is same, which is 3239, but previously the port number which was used in front was 32768. The second task I have is 32769, the port number. So it is randomizing the port number and still keeping the same public IP to connect. Now I won't see a difference here because it is still the same web server, but otherwise I would have seen web server which is now being displayed by same instance but 32769. And just to make sure, if you want, you could have selected any other task which is running on a different machine. Shouldn't be a problem at all on that case. So I hope everyone has a better idea of different type of tasks I could run and different type of services which I have. So when it comes to auto scaling, what you would be doing, you would be auto scaling your services, not independent tasks. I am trying to connect to another service now. See this, the service is connecting, right? All right. Pawan has a question. What is this example of port forwarding from 80 to 80 or from 443 to 8443? Now, why we need this, Pawan? Because what may happen, let me give an example here. So let's say this is my EC2 instance. We have one network interface here, right? ENI. Now, what may happen that everyone may be coming to port number 80 here because it is a web server. Now I don't want them to put all into one task. What may happen here that I may have multiple tasks, task number one, task number two, task number three. So these are multiple tasks running inside. And what I'm looking for, as soon as this request comes, I want to map it to somebody running 8080, another one running on 8081, another one running on 8082. So that mapping we could create if the need be. So this is one example. And sometimes what may happen that maybe you have a container which has hard coded value that this container would always respond on, let's say, port number 8080, but my front end doesn't understand 8080. So then I can create a mapping that, hey, if a request comes on 80, I want to forward it to 8080. So we can now have multiple port number within EC2, and outside we would have just one port number. So that's how we would be taking care of port mapping. So I hope this thing is clear. All right. And keep your questions coming. Any follow-up questions you have, let me know and I would be happy to answer. Now, what is the next question? Let me read that. Replica in a service is scaling the task. How service auto scaling is different than scaling the task? No, it is not different. It is same thing, right? So here auto scaling is happening on two ways. Let me explain that. So first says we created an auto scaling group of instances. So these are my instance number one, and this is my instance number two. What we did here, we have created a auto scaling group of instances also first. This auto scaling group will ensure what if my instance 2 fails? It would then launch another instance. What if my instances run out of capacity? It would launch another instance. So here auto scaling is happening at two layers. One layer is your instance and second layer is your service. So service is also having auto scaling group, but we don't see them into EC2. They are only seen within ECS. But basically what this is saying that, okay, we would launch more containers or more tasks, and depending on if one of the tasks fails, this service auto scaling would scale up and down depending on the use case. This auto scaling group will scale EC2 instances depending on the use cases. So that is a difference what is happening, but actually at the back end it is still a auto scaling group. This one is a auto scaling group of task, and this one is a auto scaling group of instances, right? That is the only difference here. All right. Any more questions here? Anyone, any doubts, any confusions, anything which is not clear? So I hope everyone is getting answer to the question and getting a better idea on how all these things work. So let's keep moving forward. And now let's quickly summarize what we have just discussed. So I hope everyone is clear with ECS, how we launch the cluster and what we have done, how we achieved this thing. And now with those services, you could perform additional thing like environment variables, and then maybe you can configure auto scaling for the service. So see this is my current status, two of them, no problem at all. This is provided by auto scaling group. And in the same cluster, you could add more infrastructure component, which could be coming from your on-prem environment also. So you could spread your load across them, and you could collect some metrics, and you could put some schedule like, hey, I want to start some task at a particular time. So only that time they would be started, otherwise they won't be there. So I hope everyone has a better idea on basics of ECS, though it goes into much detail, but I guess you have a better understanding of ECS as of now. So what I have also included, I have included this service summary cards. So you would have access to it. So ECR, what is it? You could check this one pager about all the service details on it. Same way I have included for ECS, and then you could utilize it, and you would be using EKS here. That is also there, right? So you will have access to this three service summary card to access. Last question I'm taking here is load balancer for ECS is built in. Answer is no. No, this is not built in. We are still using a application load balancer here. So it is not a specific load balancer we are using in this case. It is the load balancer of the EC2 instances. So if I go here and when I say, okay, I have my cluster and I have my service inside. If I want to have a load balancer in front of that, that load balancer is still a application load balancer which I am deploying. So if you see this thing here, there is load balancer optional, but this is not coming from EC2. That's all. Right. Question from load question is here that some confusion why we have replica setting in service to scale the task when it is being handled by service auto scaling. I didn't understand your question, Stockholm student. Maybe you have to rephrase it. So still some confusion why we have that replica setting. Okay, so what happens that this goes a little bit more in detail. I'll quickly try to summarize it. When you launch a service, there are two type of services we launch. One service is what we call replicas. So in replicas, what happen? You give it a task definition. So this is my task definition. And as the name is replica, we would just replicate that task for you. Right. This is one option. Another option we have is called daemon set. So daemon set work differently. Here what is happening that they all have independent entities. Daemon set is not called replica, but daemon set consider like a service running in background which is always responding to you. How it is responding that will be taken care by the service itself. So that is a daemon set. So daemon set is also one way of deploying your services, but the most common is a replica. Replica is just an exact copy of what you have deployed, right? So that's how it will be working. Okay. In deployment, it would launch the replica and it launch the pod. Pod is a different word altogether. So let me put the question here. So Shashik, we do not use the word pods here. Pod is a very specific word used into your EKS services. So that may be a different topic. We can discuss it sometime later. But pod is not we consider in ECS. ECS, we call it task or we call it service. But pod is a very specific word which happens into EKS mechanism. Okay. All right. Thank you, everyone. And I think it is a good time to take a short break, but don't go away. We will put a 5 minute timer, and once we return, we would have a very interesting discussion with one of the guests. Let me reveal the name. Probably you have checked the LinkedIn messages. So, Sanchit is with us, and in 5 minutes, we will be talking to him and understanding what he is doing, how the learning path has been on him. With him and what he is contributing to the community. So, very interesting story. So stay tuned and we will be connecting back in 5 minutes. Thank you. Welcome back, everyone. If you are back, type in chat what is your favorite e-learning portal? How you learn, what portal you use for e-learning. Don't say me WhatsApp. Anything else? Any favorite e-learning portals you go through? Udemy. All right, good. Okay. Any other things? AWS, that's a good one too, Aranga. Cloud Guru, yeah, it is a good one too. Udemy, YouTube and Udemy, I agree. YouTube, I hate it sometimes because I go with the intention of looking at something useful and then I just end up with some funny videos or some prank videos. So yeah, its algorithm tricks me a lot of time. But yeah, good to know. Cloud Guru is also a good one. Thank you. Skill Builder is nice one too. So yeah, that check for Skill Builder if you haven't. Skill Builder gives you lots and lots of information also. All right, thank you everyone. Now let me add Sanchit, who is with us into the call. And welcome, Sanchit. Thank you
Hey,
for
Ashish.
spending time with us. It's really interesting to see you here. And I know you had a busy day. You had some user group meetings, I guess, today, and you are still showing up. So we appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
No, it's my pleasure. Good morning and good morning and good afternoon to everyone who have been here with us as an audience here. Thank you so much, Ashish, for inviting me. Yeah.
It's good to have you here. So, Sanchit, I want to understand very basic information before we get started. Like, what is your role? So, yes, we know that you are a data analytics and cloud practice lead, but tell me a little bit more on the details of the role without sharing any personal or private information. So, basics of what you do basically in this role.
Sure. So, yeah, I think as Ashish, you mentioned my role, I work as an data and analytics cloud practice lead at Quantify, which is an AWS partner. And part of my job day in, day out is to drive solutions for our different customers and
Mm-hmm.
get them more kind of detailed insights, the kind of architecture what they need from all the well architected pillars, what we talk about, all the six pillars, how I can get them. And from a business standpoint, those well architected plus business standpoint, how I can get them to up to the speed, enable them to get that fast running on the cloud and help them to solve their business use case. So that's what I do in and out. So AWS is
Nice.
something I talk on the weekdays via Quantify and on the weekend via community. That's what I say.
Yeah, that's an interesting job, isn't it? Yeah, people would die for it. Let me talk about the second aspect of it. So you mentioned about user group. So tell us what is a user group for people who may not know what a user group is, what you do with that.
Correct. So user group you can think of like as a public community which
Mm-hmm,
is dedicated, right? There are different user groups are there, right? User groups of HashiCorp, user groups of React, Angular, Java, right? An interesting technology where you're interested. There is a common group of people who form a kind of a group. Some are regional based, like a particular city of India or online. Your AWS is very focused about AWS user group. So we
mm-hmm,
try to go best, share knowledges, invite different speakers, hands-on expertise, run different boot camps, and try to spare the awareness and training enablement on AWS. That's what we do. And there are different user groups that are available internationally on a global level as well as on the regional or on the national levels. Based on wherever you are, I'm pretty sure there will be one user group you would have. And if you don't know yet, please you can directly search AWS user group on Chrome. You'll get an entire website, a geographical map where you can spot what is a nearby user group. But that's help you to learn more hands-on. It's not just a kind of a marketing thing where we'll talk about
mm-hmm.
services and all. It's more hands-on use cases by experience or experts from industry. That's what we do there.
And good networking too, also, I guess, right?
Exactly, right. Right. We do have this
Exactly.
different in-person sessions when AWS offices where you have all different solution architects of AWS as well as industry experts, proper guidance, what's happening in industry, and as well as many a times even we as a lead get many learning because we are heads down on what we are working within our organization. We don't know what's happening outside our organization many a times.
Mm-hmm.
These are the means where it's more like a networking exchange of ideas, brainstorming. That's what it all happens.
Nice. And Parna, I guess you have been into some user group meetings, right? So tell us about your experience, like what you enjoyed being in those meetings.
Yeah, so first of all, thank you so much, Sanchit, for, I know you have a very busy day, especially on weekends, so one after another. So it's great to have you here. Sanchit is like a very common face amongst the user group Mumbai as well as India. So I have just recently, physically attended a Mumbai user group meeting a couple of months ago, and it was wonderful because the kind of interaction you can have in a physical setting is very different from a virtual
Exactly.
one. So that was great, and Sanchit was there, and a few others from AWS were there, and there were lots of people from various industries, various companies. You get to know them, and so that's really nice. So it's technical knowledge plus networking combined, and there are some nice security series which is currently being conducted by the Mumbai user group that Sanchit is leading as well. So I think it's a
Hmm.
great way to learn plus network, and once you network, even job opportunities, plus you can find yourself a mentor in these user groups. So I think it's really good, and I think some of you can reach out to Sanchit as well. He'll share the tips. So I'll just push away the little boring part, Sanchit. I would like to know, how did this all start? So what was the little Sanchit like when you started off in school? Not the AWS hero.
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah. So if I talk about a couple of my background, right? That's an interesting question, right? How I started. So I think I did my schooling. I mean, I'm born and brought up from Mumbai in India itself. I did my schooling also from Mumbai, and I did my polytechnic after that. After I did my polytechnic, and went for my graduation from Mumbai University, one of the renowned college, DJ Sangvi of College of Engineering. It's one of the renowned in Mumbai University. So I did my bachelor's from there, from com science and majors. And in the final year itself, I was more interested towards networking, programming, software, and those kinds of stuff. And that's how I landed into Quantify as my campus placement. So this is my first job from
Hmm.
campus. I've not changed
Oh,
any job, and that's it went. So
wow.
that time, I mean, it was somewhere 2015, like I would say very early, right? When you don't even speak what is cloud. Uh, I think interesting in 2014, if I remember, we had some subjects in our academic about OSs, distributed networking, and all those stuff. And I was like in one fine lab, and I was thinking about why we don't have this big data platform on this distributed way doing around it. Why it has to be within this lab only? Why I can't take it from anywhere? Why I can't access it from my home? uh, Apparently I didn't know that my life is going to change in next 2 years with that idea, and I wrote a paper and I published that paper in my college, and I won the first prize itself. And that's
That's
how
awesome.
everyone started knowing me, that okay, hey, he knows networking in and out and all of this stuff. And I didn't know anything outside OSI layer. That was just an idea in my brain. That's how it all started. I didn't know any AWS, nothing. And then I appeared for my interview, my campus placement. I got into Quantify. The role was also completely, I was opt as a software developer there. I onboarded as a software
Okay.
engineer. But there was an interesting program, there was an interesting project which just started when I joined my organization. And they also saw that, okay, oh, he did something like which is close to the cloud and all, right? So first time I still remember, I think it was just probably a month in Quantify, and they asked me to write Lambda API gateway. The API gateway service was just announced at reInvent in 2014. Lambda was also just out with Node.js and Java, and I was asked to write where there was a very limited understanding. I mean, I think some or other way I able to figure it out in microservice, and that's how I started my journey of breaking, making the things on AWS, started doing around it. I think that time we never used to have this DevOps role. They used to either call it a system manager or those kinds of traditional words. And slowly I started doing all those, running different release pipelines on Jenkins. Uh, Cloud formation is what something we did in and out. And my journey started. I think I was the first one, and I still remember in my entire organization who did the AWS certification in 2015 itself, like in just 4 months after
Wonderful.
joining the organization. And I think that's how I just got one after the another opportunity to go around it. I would say the interesting question, coming to back to your question around how exactly, what was that first thing, right? So as a part of my job in 2016, my organization asked me to travel to US, to New Jersey for some customer meeting. And that was a time when we had the New York summit in somewhere July or August 2016. That was my first event in person or AWS event which I went, and I was just sitting in some sessions, and that was a guy who was like AWS user group lead New York. I was like, what exactly this means? I was like, fine. I went to the session. I liked the session very much, and after that, I went back and I did my all the research. What is this AWS user group? What is this? Who are these people? And all of this stuff. I don't remember exactly. There was something called as AWS Heroes at that time, but that motivated me. Okay, there is something called as AWS user group community. What you can do and all of this stuff. Slowly I started doing that internally within Quantify. So before even people know me outside Quantify, I have done like an entire blog at Hackathon, certification carnival, and those kinds of different events within my organization to boost the entire technicality of our AWS expertise. And somewhere 2017 is where I got this opportunity. One of my friends asked, "Hey, you're very expert. You can talk well. Why don't you give us talk at my thing? I've just launched this AWS user group. I think the first one was Dehradun." So he's like, why don't you just, I invite you, you come and talk about it. I was like, I don't know anything. And that was the first I gave on Lambda serverless on 2017. And I think after that, one of the weekend, I've not seen that I was sitting quiet. There was some or other weekends I was doing some or other thing. And then I think year and a half back, I got this opportunity that the user group lead of Mumbai that was in transition. So they were like, okay, hey, there is a requirement here in Mumbai. You are based out of Mumbai. Why don't you do it? You're already doing too many things for the community. So that's what it's all started about, moving around it from one place to another. But always my focus was more how I can, what I have learned from my mentors, from my customers, from industry. That knowledge sharing is what I always focused via different channels, mediums, whatever it is, user group within Quantify, open source communities, or any other external communities you talk about. Knowledge sharing is was always I used to focus a lot.
Makes sense, makes sense. Now I want to go back a little bit further. Like, what was your decision to select computer as a career, or what propelled you towards IT? Because being student, you have different choices. Like for me, a different story for Parna, it would be what was your way that you compelled or propelled towards your IT or computer? How that started?
I mean, people are going to laugh about this one for sure. So, as I said, right, I did my polytechnic. So, I was, as you rightly said, I was just a school kid out from and just schooling done, right? My mentor, my uncle was in computer science. So, I was not aware about that there's something called as computer science and all those different worlds and other things. So, I mean, after my vacation, I used to go and, I mean, there was a small library at my aunt's place. So I used to go and check his books, right? So I used to know OSs, Java, CP1, CP2 before even I got into the
Wow.
my school, college, and all. Because from his books, right? I don't know what is written in it, but I just know the subject names. So that's how I got into the computer part of it. Ideally, I'll confess, I went to take admission in civil engineering, structural
Okay.
civil engineering.
By
I thought I'll
accident.
do something better there, make buildings, make people affordable stuff and all. And within my entire process of admission, this all of a sudden it got changed, and I was like, I cancelled it from CE, I made it CS.
Mhm.
So my parents were open. They were like, okay, you do whatever you want. It's you have built this out, so you go ahead. So there was a code of admission CE, and I just changed it CS, and I said, okay, now I don't want to go in this thing. And there was only one thing that, okay, if I become a software engineer, software is the core part of everything what I do. Even if I want to become a structural engineer tomorrow, I need to know some of the design aspects and all, which have been done in computer. If I want to do graphics, that also is computer. So why I don't become something via which I can do anything after becoming a computer engineer, which can be any part of it. Outside medical, I can do anything there. And that was just the idea. I was like, okay, let me go with computer science. I'll see what happens. And I think that was it. No one knows about the story, but that was the interesting fact that, okay, I changed around it. And I think I still don't regret it. Honestly, I don't regret that.
Good,
That's
good,
great.
nice, yeah. So yeah, so sometimes things change and happens
Exactly.
all of a sudden. We feel that it happened, but I see a greater plan unfolding. So sometimes we are so timid in looking at short-term failure or short-term success that we lose the overall picture. But yeah, it's good to have you here. Means still you are continuing, not a civil engineer. We would have loved to have a so affordable
Yeah.
housing from you, but we loved you more for being a AWS user group. So that's good thing. Now,
I'm just
I want to
wondering,
start. Go ahead,
Ashish,
go ahead,
sorry, I'm
Sanjay.
just, yeah, is there anything that, because you started off really soon, looking at Java, Python words, and is there anything during your college to your transition to quantity? Is there anything you feel you would have done differently? Now you think about it so that, even our attendees could think about how they should do things differently in
Yeah.
order to
So
get into user groups and, knowledge sharing. What should they do?
exactly. No, so I think I feel that's what I always describe a lot. One thing which I regret that I could have done better, as always, right, is an excitement to share my knowledge. I always try, I mean, this until I would not have got a chance to go through AWS Submit, that event changed my life. There are many things I've done in my life, right? Many of the assignments, many programming, I never documented it. I never documented it, nor I created, right? That's a one part which I always regret when I see the students at this year, right? I mean, currently the students which are going in any undergrads, polytechnics, whether it's my college or somewhere, they are way ahead than me, way ahead than me. Not about the learning, but the kind of excitement, enthusiasm they have to do for the community, to share the knowledge is beyond about what I was doing in my college days. And it is just a small idea that, okay, why don't you do this? I mean, this all user group and something I started after I left college. Like if I talk about, interestingly, my college, there are many other events which are taking place at the college level, which are very renowned entire town. I never participated in it.
Right.
I never participated in it. So that was something I feel I regret. If I would have done it, the change which I see after joining community, I could have
Hmm.
seen before even leaving the college. So I could have accelerated a couple of my more success stories and growth if I would
Hmm.
have been in that external communities and other stuff as a part of
Yeah.
that
We
college.
can start early, right? Upskilling rather than,
Exactly.
get into the job and then realize that now I need to do something.
Correct. And
Yeah.
again, as Ashish also mentioned, right, it's all about networking. Like when you host an event, there are different skills which grows, right? Your interpersonal skills that grows, communication skills, negotiation, networking. So there are many skills which develops outside your curriculum studies, right? So my focus I've done like more on curriculum and technical part. But I think if I would have also switched 20-30% on this side, I think I could have been a better uh, growth around it.
Right.
Makes sense. Yeah, I agree. Means yeah, means these event test you on every front, not just technical, but like how you organize it, things go bad, how you manage crisis, how you manage people not showing up or showing more people than expected. So yeah, that is a good experience. And even if you are a student, I just want to like talk a little bit on that. There is an initiative from AWS called AWS Cloud Clubs.
Yeah.
So if you are a student, there is a Cloud Club initiative by AWS, which is creating user group within college which only that college participant can be part of, and again similar type of knowledge sharing event and then learning expertise, so that is there. So if you, maybe not you which you are attending, but maybe if you have your niece or nephews or maybe your younger brothers or sisters, so check with them that if they can find something like if they are interested in technology, AWS Cloud Clubs, and they would have a lot of interaction there also. So we recently announced some captain on Cloud Clubs, so that is a good thing. You could propel your other people if you want to. Good, thank you. Now I want to know a little bit more on like what learning resources you use. Like you mentioned that you were thrown at the deep end when you started, like hey, there is a API gateway service announced, go ahead and look for it. How you started learning it, because it's not easy in an initial stage.
Correct. No, that's correct. And I was looking around before we just start the session. You asked the interesting question: what are the e-learning portals, right? So still, I remember when I started. I mean, when I talk about 2015, AWS documentation was the only thing what we have. We didn't had all of this all
Yeah.
material, right? And even at that time, I remember a Cloud Guru was also not there. The
Hmm.
Ryan Kunerberg used to host his courses on Udemy. Still, there are a couple of his first version courses are in Udemy. I think in 2015, November, December, he switched to a Cloud Guru as a platform. So we only had two options: either you go with your Udemy or these things. Uh, it's the same thing everyone does for their certification. Very limited sources. So I think I've always focused on the entire documentation of AWS and a bit of Stack Overflow if someone would have already faced this, because there was limited information at that time, right? But again, as I always say, the information was limited, but authentic content was there at that time. If I talk about till 2017, but now I don't see that limitation anywhere. The AWS documentations are very, very superb. The best part of not just documentation, the blogs, right? I mean, most of the people would already be knowing there are different varieties of blogs AWS do have, which is some are hosted by partners, solution architects of AWS, like the APN blog, the data analytics blogs, and other stuff, right? If you really ask me what I do as of today, I only read those blogs. I read those blogs because those are the live example how someone would have solved something leveraging the AWS services. That okay, let's say for example you talk about data zone or any other services which are just announced, you would obviously have a blog describing that thing, right? AWS announce any services with the blog. So that is what I always leverage because that is more authentic content. You can rely, you can understand, and first you understand that foundation part of it with help of AWS materials, and then try to explore what other people have tried to done as an example scenarios, and that's how we go around it. But if you directly land up on different blogs, right? Medium you talk about, or people have their GitHub profile. Even I do it. It may hit to you, or it may not, because they are sharing their personal expertise, or they may not try to. If I talk about myself, it's very difficult that you cover everything A to Z about a service in a given blog, right? So you'll talk about more scenarios and other things. But it's very important. First, you focus foundational, and for that AWS documentations as of today are the best, and it was in the past the only medium, but now it's the best that you can refer, very well organized and very good resources with examples what you can follow.
Good. Makes
I
sense.
have
Yeah.
a question actually, Ashish, for Sanchit. Like you have so many titles, right? You have like AWS Hero, we have AWS Ambassador, AWS Community Builder, and you are all of them. So I think many people will be curious, what's the difference between them, and what, how should you apply, and how should you target to be one?
Sure. Yeah. I'll talk about that. Even I mean, sometimes even I see when someone was like, "Okay, hey, how we should describe you?" I was like, "That's a hard question for me also to talk about to justify everything, right?" So basically, I think in 2000, just in the COVID, like 2021, I got selected for community, for this one, partner ambassador. Partner ambassador was more like a program for AWS partners. And since I work for Quantify, which was a premium, which was an advanced consulting partner at that time, they were like, okay, hey, you're doing a lot of stuff internally, externally, and we want to nominate you for this. I had no idea. I mean, I was one of them that, okay, that was an opportunity for me. So I was like, okay, yeah, why not? Let's grab that opportunity. We'll see what exactly is that. So I got onboarded from my partner solution architect, right? So this program generally is for the employees who are part of the partner organization and your PSAs. You have a partner solution architect if your company is part of it, and a partner development manager. So these are the two folks who nominates your name, and this community, or if I talk about, these are the expert people from the partners who work closely with the solution architects to talk about what they see in the trend in the customer standpoint, where exactly their customers are lagging around different programs and all. So it was more from a business standpoint which I got into it. And as I was already doing all a lot of stuff on user groups, so I never stop around it. I mean, somewhere this ambassador helped me to push beyond the business by giving me more opportunity to talk about, write blogs, understand what other people are doing, maybe in UK and US also. So I leverage this not only just for the business, to even understand what people are doing in market, right? And community builder was just launched at that time. It was not, I think that was the first batch and I was rejected from it. I can tell that I was rejected from the first time. It was before even I got into ambassador. So
Hmm.
community builder, I got rejected for the first time. Then I got into ambassador. Why ambassador? Since I was an ambassador, I got for the second window in community builders, again for the same data stream. The only thing I used to leverage all of this platform is to understand what people are doing, how I can improve by content delivery or understanding what these people are doing, and how I can improve my pace, right? So that's I started doing around it. And I think still this how this entire program, right? Community builder is, again, you have to apply. If you have good things around what you do for the community, like blogs, githubs, other kinds of stuff, then you get into it. Ambassador, as I mentioned, it's more for the partner organization. If you have the partner thing, then you can request your PSAs. There are certain prereqs, like you need to have X number of certifications, X number of community contributions. but those are very minimal. You can get into that, right? And they can help you around it. If not, you can message me on LinkedIn. I can help you with those details, which are the latest bar to get into it. So these were the two titles I used to have: AWS ambassador and community for over 3 years, and I was constantly doing my work. I think one of the idea which hit me during the COVID, and this personally I was facing, is the talented pool of people, how I can train them. So there are a couple of user groups. This is before even I got into Mumbai. I think 6 or 7 user groups. We all got united and we launched a solution architect bootcamp, certification bootcamp for associate. This was one of the different way of user groups globally doing a different kind of an event. Like not just India, even globally, no one did this. And we did it
That's
completely
awesome.
with all of us organizing, planning, and all of this stuff, right? This got hit to AWS also, that okay, hey, there is something this kind of is happening, what exactly is, and all that stuff. And we were very excited to see the results. There were 10,000 of views which we got over 14 weeks of this entire journey. And almost like 50, 60 people have tagged us by saying that we have done our certifications, and we know many more have done. 50, 60 have tagged this. And that's how I started getting into different kinds of stuff. And finally, I think last year, June 2022, AWS recognized me as a community hero. So if I talk about the hero program, is more AWS giving you or recognizing you. It's not an
Okay.
invite based, or you know it that okay, you are been nominated or something, right? There is someone who sees your contribution, and they nominate it internally. We don't even know what that process is. The only thing which I can say for AWS heroes is try to be a differentiator, what exactly you do for the community space, and try to be a consistent. If you, I see many people get sad if they don't get recognized it for the heroes. Don't think that heroes is that recognition. There are many other things are there, and people are observing you. Be consistent and do what you're doing with proper quality. I'm pretty sure if not now, one fine day you will get into the hero. So hero is a different thing, but rest of are you invite, you finish up the pre-deck, and you will get into the program. So that's how all used to stand.
Great. That's awesome. So
Good,
I see a
nice.
lot
Yeah,
of y'all on Reskill, right? I think community members. I think that's also a good platform, isn't it?
Exactly.
Yeah,
Correct.
Reskill, AWS Reskill.
Correct. So Reskill is a entire YouTube channel or kind of a stream,
Okay,
right, which has been led by Confub, is another partner who
okay,
handles most of our community events. They are very good. So they try to work with all the experts in the community and try to come up different topics. So this is also again part of the same user group India channel. So we have this entire AWS user group India channel. So whatever the sessions we had, anything online are directly getting streamed. So I think what I mentioned about the security boot camp or
yeah.
this entire solution architect boot camp, everything is within that YouTube recorded. So it's freely available. Anyone can just go and watch, and I'm pretty sure you will get the best learning out of it.
nice. There are a lot of programs, I agree. And sometimes you have to prioritize and see what more aligns to you because every one of us learn differently, right? Some people are visual learners like me, like unless I see it, I don't learn it. Some people like reading, some people like interacting. So it depends. So find what is your way of doing things and find that way because there are a lot of options available for you. Now, I want to talk a little bit more, Sanchit, on something which is sometimes people do not want to talk about, like maybe any career setbacks. We all go through journey is never same. It is not going into a flat line. It is always ups and down. So anything which you want to share, if it is again optional, and if it happened, what you did so to overcome it, because sometimes people go into a mode where they cannot come back from, or they feel like, hey, maybe I did a presentation, I did not do well, and then I'm always shy in giving presentations. So how you overcome that if this happens?
So, interesting question, and I would really love to talk about it openly. I will not give a like exact quotation or scenario, but I will talk about it. Okay. So, there are two parts of it. One, if I talk about the presentation, I think same example what you said, right? I think it will be very hard to believe for everyone. I was one of the biggest introvert in my college days. I had stage fear. I never used to give a stage. I mean, never, ever, ever. I got many opportunities to present papers, talk about, but I was an introvert, stage fear. I never ever gave any presentation in my schools, in my polytechnics, not even in my colleges. I used to do all those things like writing blogs, hackathons. Those are the things, events I used to do. But that's where I said, right, that could be a differentiator if I would have joined different communities in college. So that's one of the thing, and that I only got. I mean, this is one of the big change. Even I witnessed it personally. This is all because of community. Now, if I talk about I was an introvert, I cannot talk to people and other stuff. People like, okay, are you really kidding me? Like you are the guy who was addressing 100 people on Reinvent main stage, and you're telling me that you are an introvert 3 or 4 years back. I was like, yeah, I was an introvert. So things got changed because of two things. One, I was very open and transparent to my mentors in my organization. This is what I am as of now. I know I want to change it. So I used to take their feedback positively. I never, I mean, even their negative comments also, I should take it as a positive, as an area of improvements always. So that helped me along with community, different opportunities, right? First session, I still have my recording. If I always go back and see my recording, you would not believe what was that versus now, right? So you learn and grow. So don't have that shyness that, okay, I am not the perfect. No one is perfect. No one is perfect in anything what we do, but it's just the continuous practice that makes you perfect, right, for anything. So that's one thing. Second, if I talk about, there are many scenarios. I am not a guy uh, who will sit silent. So even in my organization, many people know that he will love to go here, there, do 15 things in parallel, like multitasking what they know me. So 15 things they will do parallel, and out of 15 things, 10 things I will fail. And as a human, I will have then an emotional setback. Okay, hey, I could have done this better. Why I didn't prioritize this? Instead of this X, I would have done Y, right? The only thing which I've tried to come out of is find your interesting hobby. I mean, community, professional thing is one part. What is your hobby? So for me, the hobby is music. Like just take music or just go hell drive, right? So one thing is cut off, you need to cut off from that trauma for a short time, right? Which could be anything. Someone plays guitar, someone go talk to family, someone do baking, planting, right? Anything. Figure out that one hobby which is your own hobby, right? What you can do. I think that magic really works. Second, never ever think that, okay, you failed, so that is a done, that is end of your life. No, that's not the end of the life. Always learn from it. The one thing I feel I've done better and I would request everyone is take the learning from the failures. I have never succeeded. 10% is what I've succeeded. All of these badges, what you see, are the 90% failures. Outside that failures is what I've got this 10% success. So always fail. Be happy, be proud that you're failing around it, and that's how you will learn, right? Getting all of this professional growth and everything. Most of the people in my organization also are looking forward that you have achieved something at so early, right? You're one of the youngest practice lead also. I always tell everyone, take the feedback very positively and love to fail. If you love to fail, and again, not love to fail, but take the learning why you failed and what you can improve to fail, I mean what you can improve to succeed next year, that's what is going to help you. And this is all the thing what I do. And the best part is I have two-person in my life. Even this magic doesn't work if there is a disaster that takes place. So there are two-person. My wife and my mom are the motivators for me. They can read my face and very well understand something is wrong with him today. So it's better that, okay, we get him out from it, help him to understand. So they will play some music at home. They know that I'm a fond of music, so they will play the music and other stuff. So always be with your family, with your friend circle, right? Don't cut off yourself. Find some hobbies to you. If you are an alone, right, try to find out some hobbies which can be anything, reading some books, planting, baking, or music, anything. And again, proud of your failures and take the learning out of it. That's what I always do about wherever I have failed, right? One simple example is, people know I've done many certifications, right? For the first time, I failed for my networking certifications for just 2 marks, right? I think that was like 730, 750 was a passing. I got 745 or 46. I was so sad. I was like, it's just 2 marks. And again, that 2 marks because my internet got tripped. So I was doing from this remote. I was like, now it is not my failure, but I got failed. And that was the first time I got failed. And my last certification, it was like the 10th of certification. I've done everything. So I was like, okay, this is not, I never ever failed my life. And honestly, it was like a very small thing for everyone. Okay, it's fine. I mean, what is the big thing in it? Give it again, right? After a month or two, you know it's not here. But for me, it was like, okay, hey, it was not me. It was some technology who failed me for the first time in my life. What the heck is this, right? So that kind of a failure, but I made sure that when I appear next, I not only got 750, but I got 900. Like this time, I'll make sure that
Wow.
I'll just kill it. So
Nice.
again, take the learning out of it, how you can improve, and that's what will make you a differentiator.
Amazing.
So
So you are
interesting.
like almost self-made, but I'm sure you must have had mentors, right? In
Yeah.
your life.
Yes, yes, absolutely. So if I talk about, I mean, most of the people don't know, but what I am as of today is because of my parents, my family, and my organization. My organization, my mentor, who is my mentor on day one, still is my manager too. So those are
Okay.
the two people have, I would say, given a different landscape to me. They always challenge me, okay, this is what you can do, this is the next level, right? One thing I always see is you should never settle in your life, right? So your, as a mentor, the job is that you let people reset the targets when they achieve it, right? So that's what I've seen best when it comes to getting the mentors in my life, is they always excites me to something new level, right? Which will be beyond to what I can achieve, but they will push me to the harder level. You can do it, this is what it is, and you can do it, right? If I, for example, if I talk about the reinvent, I never thought I'll will do address 100 people along with the principal architect of AWS, who is an expert. I'll be facing 100 people in reinvent, first international talk, and I was literally done. I mean, I was like, I was staying in a hotel, right? So I was down. Didn't had my lunch or dinner. I was so scared. I was like, okay, I don't have a stage fear. I'm very prepared, but I was so scared. And then my mentor was also at Reinvent, right? And two of my friends. So my friends got to know. He's like, okay, what is wrong with you? I was like, okay, this is it is. He's like, okay, fine. We'll do a mock. We'll come to your room. You do a mock. And I did a mock. He's like, okay, are you nervous? We don't think so. You're nervous. Like, we are nervous listening to you. You're telling me you're nervous. So this is like, okay, fine. And the best part is, that's what I said, right? My mentor literally helped me to get to that venue. I was so scared. My venue was not a main. It was just a faraway hotel. So it literally helped me to get to the venue. And then I was like, this is what I am done. Now the stage is yours. You go and rock it, and I'm pretty sure you're going to rock it. And I just went to the stage. I started talking about it one after the another slides. I think I delivered my entire talk within that time frame, dot time frame of 15 minutes. And after I was done, and I just went on, he's like, "You killed it, right?" I was like, "Yeah, I killed it." So he's like, "How do you know?" He's like, "I'm your mentor. I know about it. What you can do, what you want." So that's what it is, right? So it is very important, and that's why I always say, find out a mentor. I'm very lucky. I mean, I had many failures, but I'm very lucky that I got the right mentor within my organization. That's the best part of it. Obviously,
Right.
mothers are the first mentors. So my mom is the very strict. I mean, I'm the only child, right? So generally, when you say I am only child, I don't have siblings, people say you will be pampered, you
Yes,
will be
Spoiled.
spoiled. Spoiled.
right. I am not that one,
Like
right?
with my kid as of now. Yeah.
Exactly. So my mom is like, she shaped my life before I went to Quantify, right? Getting to Quantify was a larger contribution. Till that, she'll, even if I will be like 2 days back to back doing nothing, just doing chit chatting and other stuff, she'll hold me. What are you doing? What is your time management? Where are you doing? Right? Still there, right? And when it comes to within the organization, I have this good sets of mentors who will really make me feel that, okay, even though everyone is appreciating, but you didn't do a good job. These are the 5 things where you failed. And that's where it makes me a different overall individuals in terms of prioritizing time management or also doing new different things. So mentors are really important, whether it's your family member or within organizations or your teachers. You should really be, and again, trust them. Don't have any doubts on your mentors.
Right.
Yeah, I agree on that, Sanchit. I wouldn't disagree on that. Means if you look at our own journeys, anyone individual, you would find someone. Maybe you don't call them mentor, but if you look at that, they may be directly, indirectly, were doing all the things you wanted them to do. Now, I want to expand on that question. Like, let's say I got a mentor, but obviously I would expect that mentor would be so busy and so much occupied. How you leverage or how you help him or her to help you, how you leverage your mentor, what you could do to be better mentee.
Correct. So one thing which I always do, obviously, I mean, family, you always have an freedom, accessibility, right? That you can talk to them and other thing. but within the organization they also have their own job, right? Or if you talk about someone like community members, like if I talk about I'm mentoring a couple of people, right? So I'm very occupied in community jobs and all this stuff, right? So one thing always is, as I always say, trust your mentors. They are your mentors, so they know where you need your help. So even if you feel they are not supporting you, they would do it, right? Second, be in touch with them, right? Like very simple thing which I always do with my mentor also is I've set up like in half an hour, once in 2 weeks or once in a month. I make sure that once in a month for half an hour I connect with him, and before connecting with him, I send out an email that okay, hey, here are the 5 things where I need your help, or here are the 5 things which I have improved compared to last time. So the discussion is very meaningful and fruitful. What exactly I need as an outcome, right, from that particular connect? Because if you, I mean, again, whatever the challenges are or whatever it is, whether your career standpoints it is or learning standpoint, try to have very shaped discussion and be upfront that okay, this is what I want to discuss today. So one is that mentor also, if it is a very industry expert in other, it's time management and effective. He knows what help do you need, so either he will have all the materials ready or other stuff, or as well as he will help you or coach that okay, this is what I have to talk to him today, right? So that's one part of it. Second part I would always say is you always make a notes of what your mentors asked you, right? Like generally I do is still date, from 2015 onwards, what he asked me, I've created like a simple Google Doc, like very simple scribble like kid. I just write all the points what he gave me as a feedback. That helps you to even go and look back how you have course corrected yourself in his absence also. So many a times you will see the learning is not about learning new things, but even identifying your mistake and correcting it is a pattern what you may have done in the past. So that's one thing what you can do. Document everything what you give. And again, it need not to be a scrapbook or something. It could be a simple an Evernote or a Word doc kind of thing where you can just write it down, or your own personal diary. So those are the two things which I always do as a mentee, which makes me effective to approach my mentors as well as ensure I'm being very cognizant of their bandwidth and time too.
Interesting. Yeah, I agree on that. Yeah, means obviously you need to do your homework. You can't just walk in and expect somebody to like help you out.
Exactly.
Even when you go to a doctor, you say what problems you have, right? And then you have to follow the prescription given to you. So exactly same applies with mentor-mentee relationship also. Good, thank you. Now, I want to talk about like a controversial question sometime. People may have different opinions on that. So, what is your opinion on certification? Like, is it helpful or is it just a checkbox activity? Because you see people, hey, I achieved 12 certification in 3 months. Then sometime I question, is it worth doing it? Have I learned something out of it? Or it is just like I wanted to have a shiny badge on my chest, that's all. So what is your opinion on that?
I think a very good question, and this even a question I faced it a year back when I was doing a boot camp. Right? Why exactly a certification boot camp? There are many things what you can do. Uh, I would say it's a twofold kind of answer. I would say, right? I'll try to be a
Hmm.
little diplomatic on this front because I've seen both the kinds of personas in my life, honestly. One is obviously, if you really ask me, my personal experience with certification is more the badges you can get later on in your career. First you need to have the foundation. Even if I talk about my journey, I start, as I said, right, I started my entire, the first certification I've done in 2015 December. But if someone asks me what is your second certification, when did you do, I did it in 2018 March, solution architect associate. So there was a good amount of gap of roughly 2.5 years. That 2.5 years is where I was doing more hands-on. And again, hands-on of DevOps, security, networking, and all kinds of stuff, right? Those all specialty track I've seen recently coming out. So there's a good amount of gap which I had in my entire growth or entire my career also. And even if I talk about my certification, I've just finished like in 2021, all the 10 certification. So one thing which I always do is make sure what are the certification which are relevant to my role, to my growth. That's plus one which I will focus on. And then what is the interesting thing which I do? Like machine learning is something which is close enough to my role, but not something. But I was fascinated, so I did around it. I focused around and I did. So first is a prioritization part of it, and then you do, right? But the whole important thing is, if you really ask me as a even a I would say interviewer, I've done many interviews also. If you ask me as an interviewer, would certification add any value to my profile? Maybe 30%, 70% your hands-on expertise and how you answer the scenarios and all. So it can help you as, let's say, only a gateway. a gate pass, right, to get into the interview, but how you behave in the interview and how do you answer is the hands-on effort what you put to get that certification. No one is going to ask you which was question number 60 of developer associate. You answer me that, but they will ask you in the other way around in a live example. Like very
Mm-hmm.
simple example I always say is, okay, how do you set up a VPC, which is a common question across all the associate certification. So if you not do hands on, they're not going to ask you straightforward question. They will ask you some other way around. Okay, I did this things, still it is not working, what mistake I did. So that troubleshooting, you will not able to do it if you're not having a hands on. So that's one part of it, right? Where certification looks glorious. Honestly speaking, I never posted anything that I've done any certification on LinkedIn. I've added all my badges, but I've never promoted in my networking that I've done my certification, which I see a different trend now. Everyone, as you rightly mentioned, right, Ashish, everyone does a certification, they will post it. I did the certification. I did this, right? Which is good. This is their personal opinion, but I would say take certification as a outcome of your learning, not as a shiny patch of something you show off, right? So just one thing. And again, it's your personal thing. Even if you show up, you have to justify it. Show off, just adding it won't help. You have to explain people how you got that certification, which will be very important. So that's a major personal my opinion has toward that side of it. Second side of the certain people are they do the certification more from a organizational standpoint, like the growth within the organizations, or from a business standpoint way they do it, right? So I would say if you're doing under that influence from a career, I mean from an organization or a business standpoint, please make sure that you, if you are even getting the certification by any medium, justified after getting that certification. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
at least whatever you are doing, let's say you're getting a developer associate certification, somehow or other you are able to crack that. Please make sure at least theoretically you have an idea complete of what you are doing, right? Because I'm pretty sure for whatever you're doing, there will be one person who may come up and ask you, okay, what did you do in that? Okay, you're developer certified, you should be knowing all of this, right? That is a time where you feel you will really let yourself down. Okay, I should have really do it, right? So make sure that you prove that you have the skill to get that certificate. Don't just get that certification that it's going to add any value. It's not that the time. I've seen many people who are not certified, honestly, because they follow the same thing that okay, certification is not going to help, and are doing really good in their career. So it's all about hands-on expertise. But if you have hands-on expertise, then I would really request you go and get yourself certified, because that will add on top of it. So don't feel like, okay, I have expertise, so I don't need certification. Again, if you have an expertise, you have right the skills, then it always makes sense that you get yourself certified so other people know that you have the skills. So it's a medium
Mm-hmm.
of also leveraging and demonstrating that, okay, I know the skills. So leverage certification as that medium of demonstrating your skills to everyone.
Makes sense. It's an interesting one. Parna, you have question?
Just wanted to know which is like the, I know you've got so many highlights in your journey till now, but which is the most, prominent one for you? You keep mentioning reinvent. I think that had a big impact. But is there one particular thing in your role as the cloud lead at your organization or in your AWS journey which you want to say that was my highlight point till now? I'm sure there are many more coming up.
Yeah, there are many more coming up. There are many more if I talk about it, right? Personal front, the first one was traveling to US. Like, I think I just had like my 8 or 9 months in an organization, and your organization trust you and
Hmm.
send you to US to customer facing. That's a big, big win for me.
Yeah.
So that was my personal, I would say. And again, that brought a different perspective of looking the world, right? When you at that early age, when you're learning, you go sit down with the customer in their office, understand their problem. It's a different experience overall, right? I'm very sure there are very, very few people who get that kind of a luxury or experience at very early. So I would say that is still, whatever happens in my life, that is the first thing I will never forget. That was one of the things, right? Second thing, if I talk about the interesting one, which was always for me, was getting an award in an APJ community one, which I got last year. I mean, I got many titles, many awards, many things, but you get something on an APJ level which you don't even expect. You're not even present in person. Sorry for everyone. I was not even present in person because of my health issues, and I just got a ping from one of my friends. Check this video out. I was like, okay, let me open this up. And I literally cried after looking that. It was just a minute of video.
Nice.
And then they announced the winners. That was the only segment of announcing the winners. No one knows. I literally cried after that because I never expected. I was like a normal middle class kind of a guy who was always prioritized how he wants to work, very planned life, and you all of a sudden get recognition on such a large forum without even you letting you know that even you're nominated for it. That was the second big change in my life, and that's really is was something like, okay, this I never did. I mean, this moment I was not there in person, but I can imagine it if I would be in person. What it was, I would have literally cried on the stage itself.
I remember there were like a couple of LPs, na leadership principles for which you were awarded. Can you tell our audience like which leadership principles were there?
Yeah, so coincidentally, this is the badge which I always used to get within the Quantify and even outside. So that means I own this principle. The principle was earned trust. So this was the
Very
earned trust
important.
award which I got from last year in our community summit, which was in Bangkok. Sorry, which was in Thailand. Last year in Thailand, somewhere around September. So this we also have different awards categories in my organization, Quantify also. Untrust is a common which I've always got from customer, from my founders of the company, from my managers for work I do. I never expected this category is not going to leave me even in the community space. So when I
So
got this, I
important.
cried. And then I got it, I'm getting an untrust. I was literally laughing, okay, here also you are but and chasing me. So if I see my cabinet of trophies, these are all untrust, different names, but all untrust, untrust,
You've
2016,
absolutely earned everybody's trust over here
Exactly,
also.
exactly.
So
Yeah, it's so authentic means we're talking to
yes,
you and we
so
feel like,
genuine.
hey, it's genuinely all the things are coming up. There is no polishing of the words or polishing of the
Absolutely.
failures because sometimes people manipulate things in making themselves like I am the best, I am the Superman of the community. But yeah, that's a ground to earth approach. That is like a down to earth approach is something which is really interesting. Thank you. Now I have Prasad also. Hey Prasad, I will add you now to stream. So Prasad is one of the member, and probably Sanchit was talking to him. So we will
Hey,
we
Prasad.
will wait for Prasad to ask question. But I want to drill one more question, Sanchit. That you talked about uh, how your hands-on experience would help, but a lot of people may not be having that leverage or that opportunity to have hands-on. Maybe they are into a different day job. Maybe they are doing XYZ, but nothing related to cloud. Maybe you were lucky in a way that you've started with cloud, but for a lot of us it may not be a cloud experience at all. So how you gain cloud experience if it is not your day job?
Correct. No, so again, a very interesting question, and I've seen many people, like as you rightly said, I after 8 years, I feel very lucky of that day, of that decision of joining this organization because I never thought at that 2015 that cloud is going to be the change of the world of technology, right? Whatever you do. So I was lucky enough in that. But I've seen many examples, the people around me or the people within the community, they come from different setup. Like some comes from a complete different industry, right? Like one of the guy I know from US, he was a doctor or he was a nurse. Then he got changed to IT industry and then he got into the cloud, right? So there are many examples I've seen such in my entire, I would say, horizon where people are changing their careers and other stuff, right? The more important thing, as I always say, is uh, understand first is prioritization. What you want to do in your life, right? Again, if it's not where whichever, if let's say you have 15, 20 years of experience, doesn't mean that okay you cannot change your career. No, or absolutely you can change your career, and you it's your right to change the career if you are not interested in it. But it all matters is that effort, right? That hard work, that effort, and you have to be dedicated. Many a times I've seen people have aspirational to become a cloud engineer or DevOps, but they dropped it. They drop in a middle because it's a challenging one, right? So one thing I would be very upfront: if you're changing your career, it's going to be challenging. So it's not easy. It's not easy for me also. It's not easy for anyone. So I recently got changed. When you even get into promotion, right, or anything, you move to other levels. So it's you need some time to settle in that environment. So same is the thing. So you have to be consistent. You have to be ready for that challenging. So that's one part. Second part is the entire learning material, right? What exactly you learn, how do you do another thing. So obviously I said is one is you can get into the now there are different programs Like this one of them, BNA SC, right? Solution Architect. This is one of the very innovative program where there are many hands-on things. The second, I think, as Parna also mentioned, there is a AWS Reskill, Skill Builder, as well as there are different user groups, right? Which gives you different kind of a medium, the content to do all of these things, right? One of the interesting thing I would always say is follow a proper career path. If you don't know, let's say if you are into any other domain, that's fine. Reach out to the expert and help them to just define the career path, that okay, if I want to be, let's say, from X to Y, what are the 5 skills or 10 skills what I want to learn. First, that career path is very important as a journey. Then after, once you have that journey, you try to map the resources what you have. Let's say, for example, when it comes to AWS, this is a common question which I always get is, the AWS user group contents are for level 200 or level 300. Uh, Skill builder is also you have for level 100. But what if I just want to start? I'm just learning ABCD of cloud. How I can start that? So one part is, obviously there are many materials of skill builder you have, or we talk about the Udemy, right? So that is one thing what you can do, which can get you the theoretical part of it. You understand about services, what is that services. But there is something very interesting I want to share is AWS workshop. So if you don't know, there is something called as AWS workshop, which is very detailed steps, documentation, along with screenshot, which you can follow. Personally, I do all the labs from that workshop itself till date, because that's a very detailed step. You get any new service that comes up, the first thing which I always do is go to workshop and see if there is any section available around that, which I can refer as an example, or I can do that hands on and understand, because those are the very guided thing. Again, documentations of AWS are there, but the best part of workshop is it's a scenario based questions with the proper steps. So if you start doing in that scenario based thing, I'm pretty sure you can crack any interviews, because those are the one designed by the AWS architects or the other organization partner architects who have been in the industry. So they are very exhaustive documentations and other stuff. So if you do all that journey plan plus this entire workshop and skill builder, I think that will help you a lot to gain experience at least around it. And then there are certain experience which you get on the job, right? As then when you start building around it, there are failures, as I said, right? Beginning also there are failures, and that from that failures you will learn to troubleshoot, and as and when you more troubleshoot, you will develop that skills to understand another thing. But that's how generally I would prefer anyone who's already an expert and want to maybe move to DevOps or machine learning. This apply to any role, whether you are a DevOps and want to do analytics or machine learning. This is the journey which I always say to everyone, that follow. First carve out a plan, and then map the resources for that plan, and then do more hands-on around it.
Nice. And Prasad is our hands-on guru. I would say, like he is always behind and sharing resources on a hands-on. I think Prasad, you started a series of few weeks where you will be sharing every Wednesday of your workshop details, something like that.
Yes, it's as Sandy said, people always, get struggled in how they can build their cloud portfolio if they do not have, uh, opportunity to get the experience in their current role, right? And this that comes up again and again. And I keep mentoring few folks on that. So I thought, let's do like a 3-month program in where just I'll share the workshops that they can do it in their own account, in their own free time. They'll have 1 week to complete one workshop, starting with basics like the general immersion day and the networking and the core concepts, and then going ahead in the 12 weeks, we'll try and cover more advanced, like creating a iterative modernization workshop, or like a whole migration thing. So the idea is all about, in 12 weeks you start from the basics of getting those hands-on experience, and in 12 weeks you become kind of an expert who has a full breadth of knowledge on you know experience. And then obviously it is on the individual to choose a specific specialization. I generally say, take the
Yeah.
T-shaped thing, get a broad understanding, and choose one specialization and dive deep into it. But yeah, thanks, Sanchit. Sorry I wasn't able to join earlier, but yeah, it's a great, inspiring story. And I don't think if I have any other question that would you not have answered already, because I was not able to hear the initial part. But if you have not already answered, you already are a great career stage right now, and you have awards and stuff. But what's the future path that you see for yourself? And what's your plan in the future? Where do you see yourself in next 5, 10, 15 years?
I would add to that. So what is the path? and what steps you plan to take it if it is not very personal, right? So if like say, hey, I want to do this, and maybe it is like a very outrageous statement as of now, and I don't doubt it, but like what would be the steps you plan to take it, just to give an idea like how others can plan their own future path.
Correct. No, fair enough. So I would divide this answer into two or three steps. Okay. So generally, I don't directly will jump into like 5 years or 10 years. So first, I'll break it like, okay, what I want to achieve this year, 2023, for
Hmm.
next 8 months, right? What I want to do in 8 months, and then what I want to do in next 2 years or 3 years, kind of. So for me, this next 8 months are very clear. Personally, I want to balance it, right? So I mean, it looks more glorified that okay, you're doing your professional, community, personal, and all right. But somewhere I feel when I start doing all of this bucket, there is one bucket which is health, which get lost. You don't have time to do it, right? So something that I've started doing it better, I would say, from last at least Q4. So I want to prioritize my time across all those four buckets. That's one thing which I want to focus. So far I'm doing good for last 4 months, but I want to focus for that next 8 months. So that's one of the big thing I want to do, because I'm pretty sure I mean, many people who knows around me, it always starts from this at the end of beginning of the year, and it just goes down by Q3 end, and Q4 is a disaster flatline. Again, it doesn't matter because the industry line I am into, it Q4 is always good enough that you can
Exactly,
go
always
through.
busy.
Exactly. So I'm fine by nature. I quite save always, but that's how it's always start. And I want to change this. So I want to just don't want to try too much, make it like a flat line. I know it's impossible trying to do that. So that's one part I want to change. The second part I have also want to do is personally also have to upgrade myself. There are many things like we see again. I don't want to talk about only just Chat GPT or something, right? There are many other things that are coming in this entire space, which I talk about data analytics. You talk about, or you talk about any kinds of other tools and other thing, right? So I want to upgrade my knowledge also personally, because if I know what's happening around it, then I can bring that authentic content for my community also. So that's a second thing which I want to do this year, that I want to focus more writing on APN blogs. uh, the target which I set at the beginning of the year, I'm almost close to achieve that by June itself. So there are few blogs which I will get released soon. So that's what I'm trying to focus at, how I can bring more open source and more blogs of what I do in and out in my tenure in Quantify, how I can bring it to larger audience so they can read and understand how I architect that entire kind of a solution for the customer. So that's the second thing which I already plan, and I'm halfway through, and I'm most probably I'll be getting by June to that level. So health, upscale, sharing via blogs, and the last thing which I want to do, especially around communities, to grow user group Mumbai professionally by scaling this entire user group thing, so it can run even in my absence. So even in my absence also, it should not be so far for last 15 months after I've started doing lead, the I mean, I think there's not a single month where we have not hosted one event. But it is very important that you have to scale to make it consistent. So that is the last bucket. I want to make sure that how I can make it consistent in my absence by getting more leaders, training more leaders, creating more leaders for the community, so they also get recognized in community as well as they do it. So that's how I plan, personal wise health, professional wise the entire kind of upgrading my learning and sharing more content, and the community wise the entire kind of training more leaders around it. So that's how I prioritize for next 8 months. Coming back to the entire 2 years tenure which I'm talking about, from a family standpoint, again, growth, I still believe there is ample what I have to learn and grow. Not just I'm talking about the promotion, but even the way I think about a solution, or think about a problem, or think about the behavioral skills, right? So there are many growth I still have to see. I'm still at very early age of my career. I have to learn and be a sustainable. That sustained bar is still I have to achieve. So that is what I have to focus for next 2 years. From a learning standpoint, again, I don't know. Today is ChatGPT. Tomorrow it could be anything. So I have to make sure that I upgrade my knowledge as and when industry also evolve. So learning, I have to do it. And the big thing that all will fall into place is time management and prioritization, which somewhere I always cross that boundary. It's a thin line. So I have to more focus on it, because if I want to scale really in everything what I do as a good, time management, priority, That is what I have to focus around it. So this is how I see my 2 years. First 8 months, and then I see as a 2 years around it.
Very nice, interesting. Anyone
Now,
in
one
audience
point
has
that
a
you mentioned,
question? Yeah, yeah, go ahead, Prasad.
yeah, the health part, that's the right thing to do, and you need to always keep on prioritizing. Like I also learned it very hard way. We think that early in the career, specifically when we have more zeal and like we can work harder, we feel that it's okay, we can take care of our health later. But
Yeah.
it's not the case. Always prioritize that from the very beginning. That goes a very long way. It's a marathon, it's not a sprint. The career is a marathon. It's going to be there for 30, 40 years, right? It's not just a 5 year career that you can achieve the glory and then it is all gone. So yeah, uh, you know but yeah, Sanjit, I think probably you're lucky enough that you got a lot of good learnings at early stage in your career, so which is really good. And this is what I'll tell everyone, learn from someone else. No need to make the mistakes if you can learn from someone else.
Or you make mistakes and learn. Either way,
Yeah.
I mean, either
In
So
both
yeah,
ways.
totally. So yeah, exactly. No,
Excellent.
make new mistakes. The mistakes that have already been made by
Yeah,
others.
don't repeat it.
Make new mistakes and learn.
correct.
Nice, thank you. Now, anyone in audience, any question for Sanchit? I have a last question. I'm saving it for last, but if anyone in audience has a question, let me know. Put it on chat and we will highlight it here. Yeah,
I
all
can
right.
answer all the questions for next 2 hours, so don't worry about my energy. I'm always
Yeah, I appreciate that. No worries on that. So yeah, means probably people would reach out to you afterwards. So I hope you
sure.
would be open for connection. So anyone who wants to reach out to Sanchit, feel free. And he is doing a lot of work in community, and hopefully he would keep on doing it. Now I want to like be respectful of everyone's time here, and I want to like summarize this by asking Sanchit about top three tips he could give to our audience here. What could be top three things? Could be technical, could be personal, could be behavioral, whatever. Like three life hacks which helped you and you think will help others also. Top three tips.
Correct. So three things if I talk about constant learning, uh, it's very important. Constant learning slash knowledge sharing. That's always is a priority. Wherever you are a vice president of some big organization. If you're not learning, and learning, I doesn't mean technical. It could be any learning. Like as we're talking about learning from your mistakes, learning from your environment. So constant learning, prioritization, time management is very important. Third, I would say is health, right? So these are the three things I would say. And the fourth thing is your goals, your journey, where you want to go. It's not necessary. Maybe you all want to become a solution architect. Okay, what after solution architect? What do you want to do? You want to join, for an example, AWS? You want to join some other organization, or you want to do solution architect? And what you want to do after being a solution architect? So four things. Again, if I repeat around it, four things: constant learning, time management, prioritization, health, and your destination where you want to go. So if you have these four things, whichever wherever problem you are, it's not only going to motivate you, but even it will guide you what you want to do and where are you standing as of now. So those are the four tips I will give it to myself personally, and I'll pass it on to my audience and everyone.
Mhm.
I
Yeah,
agree on
agree
that.
on
Like having that clarity on the goals is important. Like it's not about everyone else is doing. That's why we should be doing it. Having that clarity that what you personally as want to achieve and having that goal mindset is important. Cool.
agree on that. Thank you so much, Sanchit, and for spending your time. And I would like to thank Parna also because Parna has initiated this thought and got you here. And I appreciate everyone taking time and helping others learn. So that's how we grow, isn't it? Like if we help others, we also help ourselves. So thanks for doing that and keep up the good work. And we hope to see you in some other sessions. Any audience, feel free to get in touch with Sanchit if you want any career advice or something. Obviously, respectful of his time also. He may not have time to talk to everyone every time, but yeah, probably he would try to help as much as he can. And give us ideas, everyone. Anything we can do to make your learning better, to make your career choices better, let us know. It could be technical, it could be behavioral, or it could be something else, a wide idea also. We are all open for it, so we will try to accommodate as much as we can given our limited time and expertise. But keep those comment and feedback coming up. That's only the way we know that what is working and what could be done in better. So all right, thank you everyone, have a good one, and we will see you into the next section. Thank you everyone, thanks, bye.
Thank you,
Thank you so much,
everyone.
sir.
Thank you all.
Bye. Yeah.